status of the impeachment proceedings next.
Local physicist Aaron Godfrey is looking to change the Ohio 16th. Hear about what drives him and what he can do to serve coming up. And later we have some special guests from the KSU for Bernie organization on campus. Portage Pulse starts right now. Good evening, Portage County, and welcome to the first episode of the semester of Portage Pulse. I'm Dante Setafanti.
And I'm Erin Sullivan. We begin today with news out of Mar-a-Lago. Two are in custody after a black SUV attempted to breach security while heading towards Mar-a-Lago from Palm Beach.
A police chase ensued and shots were fired. President Trump is expected to land at Palm Beach International Airport later tonight. Ohio's 16th district has a man by the name of Aaron Godfrey running to represent it. I sat down with the physicist and Miami alum who is looking to get the Democratic nomination and defeat current Representative Anthony Gonzalez.
I think it goes back to just my life story in general. I think that what I went through with my family, with my dad passing from diabetes complications, these are things that shouldn't affect any families. Insulin is a widely available medicine. Why did my dad crash at the point that he suffered long-term health consequences, wound up dying from it? And being a first-generation college student, not knowing how that system worked, being mired in the student loan debt that resulted from that, name an issue, man. I hate to be broad like that, but it's just at some point you stop. You say to yourself, I can't be on the sidelines. If I want to serve my country, I may be too old to join the armed forces or what have you, but I can do something, and this is that something I decided to go with. Any of the Republicans in the 12 Republican districts in Ohio, if you're unaware, the districts in Ohio drawn so that they were drawn such no congressperson could win their district by less than like 10 points. No one in this state has had to work for their job in D.C. in that much time. Anthony Gonzalez is a particularly good case, Representative Gonzalez, because he flew into the district and just basically was given the job because he was appointed somehow by whatever Republican machinery exists. And they knew the district shape, they knew his odds, and would you like a job? Here you go.
As the campaign trail heats up, several clubs supporting different candidates have emerged on campus. Here today is Dante Setafanti with representatives from Kent State for Bernie Club. Hi, Dante.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm now joined by Adam and Donna from the Kent State for Bernie Club. Thanks for coming on today, guys. Can you introduce yourselves and the club you represent?
Yeah, my name is Adam Schrader. I'm a double major in political science and public communication, and I'm the president of Kent State for Bernie.
And I'm Donna Ravi. I'm a senior digital sciences major, and I'm the communications director for Kent State for Bernie.
Oh. Yeah. Why did you guys decide to start this club?
Yeah, so we started this club last semester because there's just so much rich history on this campus of political activism, especially progressive anti-war activism, and that's something that Bernie has stood for his entire life, and there's so much support for Bernie on campus, but no one was really organizing that, so we just wanted to organize that and mobilize students to go out and vote for Senator Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of disheartening to see how many people feel disempowered in election seasons, and we've been able to reach out to so many students who think wow, we can actually do something about this election and not just sit there until November, pretty much, so.
I'm sure you guys have heard this a billion times or been asked this, but why do you believe Senator Sanders is the most qualified to become the Democratic Party's nomination?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the polls, he's definitely the most electable. I think people tend to look mostly for who's the most electable. But so far, we've seen that he's highest in the polls for the caucuses in Iowa and New Hampshire. And studies have shown, well, actually just historically, whoever wins the caucuses in Iowa and New Hampshire have always become the nominee for that party. So that's looking pretty good for him.
And I mean, he has record fundraising right now. Most donors, most individual donors. The only candidate with more individual donations than Donald Trump. He has the highest favorability ratings, most popular senator in the country. So we really think like he's the best candidate to beat Trump. And just his consistency on the issues and always being on the right side of history and fighting for marginalized groups and stuff. So that's why we support Bernie.
Many people within the Democratic Party believe he cannot win, and he will give 4 more years to Donald Trump if he gains the nomination. Now, would you guys rather, because I think it's fair to say that everybody in the Democratic Party does not like Donald Trump, and I think it's fair to say that whoever is the nominee is the person you two would vote for. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Would you rather that Bernie Sanders is not the nominee, or would you rather that Bernie Sanders wins the nomination, but Donald Trump wins?
Well, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, he is going to beat Trump. Because like we said, he has the highest favorability ratings out of any of the Democratic candidates. The record fundraising, he has the enthusiasm, the momentum. So I don't think he would lose to Donald Trump. And he's beating Trump in head-to-head general election polls in swing states and overall in the country. So we're trying to make him the nominee because we think that he will beat Trump.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like, there's so many issues that Bernie can really attack, like, especially foreign policy. Like, he has always been pretty strongly against war. That's something I'm very passionate about. So, like, would I vote for, let's say, Biden if he was the nominee? I suppose I'd have to, but we live in a world where we can elect Bernie instead.
Yeah,
so.
and I think there's like this narrative in the Democratic Party where you can either vote for your values in this election or you can vote for someone who will beat Trump. But you don't have to do that when you vote for Bernie. You can vote for your values and what you support. And polls do show that the Democrats support him most on the issues that they care about, like healthcare, the economy, the environment. So you don't have to choose between those two. You can both have someone who is going to win and beat Trump, and you can vote your values and have those policies implemented.
How do you feel about Hillary Clinton's recent comments about Bernie Sanders?
I mean, like I said, he has the highest favorability ratings out of any of the candidates. He's the most popular senator. There's a lot of people that like him, but obviously, like, the establishment is really against him because they see him as a threat to their power and their wealth, and we think that's a good thing because those kinds of people have had too much power in this country.
And I think, like, it's kind of interesting, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
It's just interesting because she lost the election last time, and there are a lot of people who seem to think that had Bernie been the nominee, that we might have had 4 years of Bernie by now. So I think it's kind of interesting people take her opinion to importance.
Well, one of the reasons why there's been a lot of backlash by Democratic voters on Bernie Sanders is they feel he's unelectable, but also because they feel many of his supporters are bullies. I'm sure you guys are aware of the Bernie Bros and that sentiment that many Bernie Sanders supporters give off to people in that opinion. How do you guys feel about that?
So I just want to dismantle the Bernie bro narrative because Bernie has the most donations from women out of any of the candidates. He has the most diverse coalition too. He's #1 with people of color. He's #1 with black voters under the age of 35, #1 with Hispanic voters, Asian American voters. So that narrative is very false. But I mean, we're just very passionate about the issues, and it's never just been about one candidate. It's never just been about Bernie Sanders. We are passionate about the issues, and we're willing to fight for that. So I think that's where that narrative comes from.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm very clearly not a man. So it's kind of strange when people are like, oh, you're just a Bernie bro, you're just a bot on Twitter. And it's like, no, I'm a woman, I'm the daughter of immigrants, I'm very passionate about these issues, and that's why I'm willing to fight for them, as Adam said.
The impact of Ariana Grande's endorsement and other icons of our generation just continues his appeal with young voters, and he's had that appeal to young voters for a long time. But how do you guys feel about that impact that he has with that voting pool?
I think he's been so appealing to young voters because we've been told for so long that, you know, we should just be satisfied with making $8 an hour and being, you know, having to work full time and still not making enough money to pay the bills and stuff. We're supposed to be satisfied with going $50,000 in debt, you know, to get an education, to get a job. We're supposed to be satisfied with paying premiums, deductibles, and copays just for CEOs to tell us what they're not going to cover with our health insurance. But what Bernie's saying is that a better world is possible. That does not have to happen. Like, we can change this entire society, and it's a movement and not just one candidate, and that's what's so inspiring to young people.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on this show. And that is all the time that we have for us today on Portage Pulse. Thanks for being on with us. Back to you, Aaron.
Ohio legislators voted to delay families applying for the EdChoice tuition voucher for 60 days because they could not come to an agreement on how they manage the program. The vote has postponed applications to April 1st so legislators could discuss the students that would be eligible for the tax-funded tuition aid. State Representative William Seitz said that lawmakers were close to reaching an agreement but needed more time to resolve certain issues. And Cuyahoga County and Summit County have both been partially compensated by drug companies for their recent opioid lawsuit. Both counties have agreed to take millions of dollars from the companies, and in recent weeks, large portions have been received. Cuyahoga says it has received about $116 million, and Summit has received $104 million. A portion of the money each respective county receives goes to attorney fees and costs. The settlement packages are worth more than $335 million, were to avert the first federal opioid trial in the history of this nation.
Cleveland Councilwoman Donna Brady announced her resignation at Monday's City Council meeting after 20 years of service. Brady was first sworn into office in 1999 and said she is now, quote, exploring other opportunities. She is also urging her colleagues to name Brian Mooney, a safety director for Westtown Community Center, as her successor. The council is set to take up a nomination on Monday. Congressman Tim Ryan met with Steve Burns, the CEO of Lordstown Motors, this past Tuesday. The meeting was to discuss Burns' application for a $200 million loan through the U.S. Department of Energy. Lordstown plans to use the loan to update their plan to manufacture electric-powered pickup trucks. Ryan has expressed his support for this plan to move forward.
The GOP is voting on whether they should continue to endorse Joe Dills after it was revealed that he had a profile on a website known for helping married people cheat on their significant others. Dills is one of the 3 Republicans running for the House District 65 in Southern Ohio. He was told through private conversations with members of the GOP to withdraw from the race and replied, quote, "I never used this site while married to my current wife."
Still to come, a look at the impeachment trials happening right now and what this means for America.
And I'll break down what happened on the campaign trail this week. Portage Pulse starts right now. South Dakota lawmakers voted in favor of a law that says doctors who have given puberty-blocking drugs to transgender children will go to jail. Doctors who have been given the drugs to anyone under the age of 16 to stop hormone production are under fire after lawmakers say this actually harms young people. Reports say that transgender teens have a high rate of suicide, and lawmakers believe any drugs or gender reassignment surgeries could be the blame. The law will now have to be passed by the Senate to go in effect.
A New York writer who accused President Trump of rape last summer has requested a sample of his DNA through her lawyers. E. Jean Carroll provided a dress she wore during the alleged assault, and unidentified male DNA has been pulled off. Carroll wants Trump's DNA compared to the dress DNA to, quote, prove that Donald Trump not only knows who I am, but also that he violently assaulted me.
President Trump is reversing another Obama-era policy after he announced that the U.S. will end its ban on the production of landmines. In 2014, Obama established a mine ban policy outlawing the weapons because of their potential harm to civilians. The Landmine Monitor reported that there have been 130,000 casualties due to the landmines between 1999 and 2018.
Tennessee Republican Senator Lamar Alexander will vote against considering new evidence in the impeachment trial of President Trump. Although he believes Democrats proved their case, Senator Alexander also stated that the president acted inappropriately with Ukraine, but does not believe the actions by him are impeachable. The elder statesman referred to the second charge of obstruction of Congress as, quote, frivolous. As of 1:30 p.m. today, Senator Murkowski has voted no on witnesses, and at this point, the GOP likely has enough votes to block witnesses. The Senate is set to hold a crucial vote that could determine where the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump is heading next. CNN's Lauren Fox tells us what we can expect next.
Senate Democrats' hopes to introduce witnesses into President Trump's impeachment trial seemingly dashed, thanks to a late-night announcement from key Republican Senator Lamar Alexander.
I'm deeply disappointed in it. I think that makes it likely that the Senate may have the first impeachment trial in history that have no witnesses at all.
The Tennessee lawmaker releasing a statement announcing he will vote against this afternoon's motion to consider additional evidence and witnesses. Alexander writing, quote, "It was inappropriate for the president to ask a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent and to withhold United States aid to encourage that investigation." But adding, the Constitution does not give the Senate the power to remove the president from office and ban him from this year's ballot simply for actions that are inappropriate.
I think with this announcement, the chances of additional witnesses now has plummeted. And I think we are likely to move on Saturday to final judgment, at the end of which the president will be acquitted.
Overnight, Senator Susan Collins announced she's already made her decision, saying she'll vote yes because, quote, "I believe hearing from certain witnesses would give each side the opportunity to more fully and fairly make their case." It's still unclear if Republican Senators Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski will join her. Their support would push the Senate to a 50-50 tie, Democrats growing increasingly frustrated by their GOP colleagues.
He has been let off the hook by the Republicans who are not going to vote for his conviction, but he is not going to be set free by the American people, I hope, who get that this was not a fair trial.
Aaron Sullivan joins us now to break down this past week in campaign news. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Dante. Just days before the Iowa caucus, Democratic presidential candidates John Delaney has announced that he is withdrawing from the 2020 campaign trail. Delaney was not receiving the amount of support needed to win for the nomination. However, he says that he will throw his support to whomever receives the nomination spot. The Iowa caucuses are coming up in a few days on February 3rd. This caucus is the first major contest in presidential primaries. Typically, the Iowa caucus is a strong indicator of how candidates will do during the rest of the campaign season. Currently, Senator Bernie Sanders is leading the Iowa polls at 23.8%, while former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg is a close second at 20%. New Hampshire will have their second primary on February 11th. And finally, President Donald Trump is preparing his State of the Union address, using it as a way to relaunch his 2020 campaign. Despite the threat of impeachment in the Senate, he's planning to use his speech as a way to reach millions of voters. White House officials say that the president won't mention impeachment in his speech. The same officials also say that they don't believe the impeachment will happen. This has been your weekly campaign recap, and next week we'll be taking a look at the Iowa caucus and what it means for the future of these campaigns.
Leaves the European Union today. We'll let you know how this will affect Europe and what's next.
The first stage of Brexit is happening today, and people are wondering, what's next?
Brexit is happening. So the British people can move on and we can all stop talking about it, right? Not even close. Because even once British clocks strike Friday's Brexit hour, Boris Johnson's punchy election-winning pledge
"We're going to get Brexit done"
will only be partly fulfilled. And after more than 3 years of Brexit-inspired angst, bitterness and paralysis, January 31 marks the end of what many consider the easy part. Now there's a new deadline and a whole new mountain of uncertainty.
The end of 2020 marks the close of what's known as the transition period. Until then, the UK is out of the EU, but still following its rules. It's an 11-month window for both sides to thrash out a new functioning relationship, especially on the hugely important issue of trade.
Most trade agreements take between 3 and 5 years to negotiate. Moving to 11 months is a very condensed schedule. Most trade experts don't believe that it will be possible.
And yet Boris Johnson has already vowed he won't extend that window. So the cliff edge is back. It's once again possible Britain could topple out of the EU without a trade deal in place, without easy access to its most important market, causing enormous economic harm. But don't worry, won't happen, says the Prime Minister.
Will Brexit help farmers in lots of ways?
His cheery optimism extends to the quality of the new free trade agreement he wants to negotiate with the EU.
I think that it's massively in our interests, in the interests of both sides of the channel, to have a wonderful zero tariff, zero quota, all singing, all dancing FTA. And I'm absolutely confident that we can do that.
But scratch the surface of Johnson's hopeful assessment and you see a big, ominous contradiction. He says he wants a close trading relationship, but he doesn't want to closely follow EU regulations. That's not possible, says Brussels.
The precondition is that European and British businesses continue to compete on a level playing field. We will certainly not expose our companies to unfair competition.
So not everyone thinks the coming negotiations or their consequences will be quite as rosy as Boris Johnson suggests, especially if the Brexit slog so far is any measure. Even now, as Britain finally leaves the European Union, no one knows what Brexit will look like in a year's time, or ultimately what it will mean for the country's future prosperity. Phil Black, CNN, London.
Britain will be the first ever country to leave the European Union, which begins an 11th-month transition period. It is reported that relations within the EU will stay unchanged, but the UK will not have a say in any EU decision-making. However, British citizens living in EU countries will lose their right to vote or to run for office.
The World Health Organization has declared a global emergency as the coronavirus continues to spread. The chief of the WHO says the reason for this declaration is not what is happening in China, but what is happening in other countries. At least 213 people in China have died from this virus. The State Department has issued a warning to the American public to, quote, reconsider not traveling to China, and any citizens currently visiting China do depart using any commercial means.
The New Deal replaces the North American Free Trade Agreement, which Trump railed against during the 2016 campaign. The plan enshrines new auto manufacturing requirements and tougher labor protections, but it largely leaves the trillions of dollars in trade flow between the three countries unchanged. At the signing on the White House South Lawn Wednesday, Trump touted the New Deal, quote, the largest, fairest, most balanced and modern trade agreement ever achieved. No Democrats were invited to the signing, even though it was largely a bipartisan vote in December.
The state of Palestine has dismissed President Trump's new Middle East plan as a, quote, conspiracy. Citizens of Palestine took to their streets on Wednesday as part of a titled Day of Rage called by political factions. The plan President Trump has created would make areas of east of Jerusalem included in Palestine's capital. After Palestine dismissed Trump's plans, senior White House advisor Jared Kushner defended it. Take a look.
It's a big opportunity for the Palestinians, and they have a perfect track record of blowing every opportunity they've had in their past, but perhaps maybe their leadership will read the details of it, stop posturing, and do what's best to try to make the Palestinian people's lives better.
When we return, watch as one presidential candidate walks right into a reporter's live shot. Portage Pulse will be back in 90 seconds.
No wonder golf commentators whisper. They want to avoid what happened to this CBS reporter at a Biden event. Apparently, Ed O'Keefe's live shot distracted Joe.
Well, I'll have him come over and make a speech for us here.
And off Joe goes.
Say national polls. A little more than a month before he first appeared on ballots on Super Tuesday. Nora?
I just want you to know we're ready to do whatever you need to do here. Everybody wants to know what's going on. Good to see you. How are you?
And thus the CBS Evening News got a Joe cameo. At least he didn't call the reporter an enemy of the people.
Actually, he's really a good guy. They're a really good guy.
Later, Ed said he knew he was being photobombed by Biden.
We had this screen, we call it return in the business, yes. And so I saw him coming. And when I saw him coming out of the corner of my eye, I had no idea where this was headed.
It was headed for Kimmel's monologue.
Welcome to the campaign trail, Nora.
Yeah. And shut the up, Ed.
Joe recently tried to shut Ed up.
Why attack Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down.
Punctuated with a fist bump to the chest. Photobomb me once, shame on you. Photobomb me twice, shame on me. This isn't the first time this guy's been photobombed. Ed went viral last year covering Michael Cohen's testimony when a spectator gobbled pizza over his shoulder.
And you can sit there and say, yeah, but this is an uncredible witness.
Lunch break meets breaking news. From pizza boy to a presidential candidate, Ed's on an upward photobomb.
Well, thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Erin Sullivan.
And I'm Dante Senofonte. From all of us at Portage Pulse, have a great weekend.